Neptune Bulk Terminals, Employee Safety Orientation. Our site contains the following key hazards: mobile equipment, stationary equipment, electricity, excavations and coal piles, confined spaces, hot work, working at heights, working alone, controlled products, and housekeeping. Part 1. Introduction. In this section, we will quickly review each of the following topics about Neptune Bulk Terminals, our site map, our corporate commitment to safety, employee responsibilities, and your right to refuse unsafe work. Neptune Bulk Terminals ships Canadian coal and potash to markets around the world. Here's a map of our site. Please note the locations of the 8 muster stations. You will be provided with a printed copy of our site map during your orientation. If there is a site-wide emergency, report to the nearest muster station as soon as possible. Our corporate commitment to safety. Sitting at the top of our safety management system is our health and safety policy. It states our corporate commitment to safety and defines some fundamental responsibilities that apply to all employees, supervisory staff, managers, and contractors. We post current copies of this policy, signed by the management team, in the administration, site office areas, and the longshoreman's lunchroom. Please take the time to periodically review this policy. Employee responsibilities. While on site, employees will take responsibility for his or her safety and the safety of fellow employees, comply with all the company's policies, procedures, and guidelines, follow specific safe work procedures, be aware of potential hazards, maintain a clean work area, and use the appropriate PPE for tasks being performed. Report all unsafe acts and conditions to the supervisor. Not come to work if impaired by alcohol or drugs. Not operate machinery or equipment unless you are trained to do so. Not engage in horseplay, and report all work-related injuries immediately to the supervisor. We expect all employees to demonstrate a safety attitude equal to ours while at Neptune. This includes active participation and an obligation to comply with the Canada Labour Code, Part 2, Occupational Health and Safety, the Canada Occupational Health and Safety Regulations, Maritime Occupational Health and Safety Regulations, WorkSafe BC Regulations, and Neptune Health and Safety Policies and Procedures. Right to refuse unsafe work. Neptune Bulk Terminals fully supports everyone's legal right and responsibility to refuse work that they feel is unsafe. If you feel something is unsafe, stop work and immediately report it to your supervisor. We will work with you to correct the situation. Let us know if you ever feel unsafe. If you don't tell us, we can't help correct the situation. Fundamental safety rules. There are some fundamental safety rules that apply to everybody on site. These are broken into 2 groups, general and drugs and alcohol. General safety rules. Access the site through the controlled gate only. You must carry a valid port pass and scan it at the turnstile, or register with the guard to get and carry a visitor's pass. You may also be required to present picture ID. Neither bicycles or motorcycles are permitted on the premises. All policies, procedures, and emergency response plans must be followed at all times. Horseplay and all forms of discrimination or harassment are prohibited. Neptune is committed to maintaining a workplace where all employees are treated with dignity and respect, and will have zero tolerance for any form of violence and harassment towards employees. Smoking on site is not allowed, except in designated areas. Consult your supervisor for those designated smoking areas. Drugs and alcohol. No one shall sell, distribute, possess, or be under the influence of any drugs or alcohol while on the company premises. Drugs include any prescription medications that could impair one's abilities. Employees found to be in breach of the drug and alcohol policy will be removed from the worksite and subject to further investigation. Part 2. Key Safety Hazards. Our site contains the following key hazards: mobile equipment, stationary equipment, electricity, excavations and coal piles, confined spaces, hot work, working at heights, working alone, controlled products, and housekeeping. Mobile equipment. Regardless of where you are on site, mobile equipment such as front-end loaders, aerial lift platforms, trains, and trucks may be present. However, there are some key areas that you should be aware of. Front-end loaders are present in the potash shed area. Watch for pylons or signs indicating the bays they are working in. Additionally, bulldozers are active in the coal pile. Mobile equipment is dangerous and needs to be taken very seriously. Stay safe around mobile equipment. Where available, stay inside the marked walking paths. Always look for traffic before crossing any opening. Assume hazardous equipment is always nearby. Assume that the equipment operators do not see you. Wait for visual confirmation before crossing their path. Stay safe around rail cars. Climbing on, over, or under parked or moving rail cars is strictly prohibited. Pedestrian overpasses are located around the site for access around the trains. When walking on the roadways, pedestrians must use the marked walking pathways. Vehicles and equipment must not be parked or operated within 6 feet of any section of rail track on site without the use of protective flags. Vehicles. Seatbelts are mandatory when driving any vehicle or mobile equipment on site. Also, no cell phone use is allowed unless using a hands-free device. The site speed limit is 30 kilometers an hour unless otherwise noted. Personal vehicles are to be parked in the designated areas as outlined by signage and our site map. Some large pieces of equipment that travel across the site are remotely activated. Your vehicle could have a bad day if parked in the wrong spot. The Inner Circle Overpass. To access the Neptune Inner Circle, you may use the overpass. In order to enter, all parties in the vehicle must scan their port pass at the security gate. Note, all emergency vehicles must access the inner circle using the overpass. Emergency vehicles that need to access the outer circle need to use the main security entrance. At this time, smaller vehicles can still use the tunnel to enter the inner circle. Please observe and obey all traffic lights or flag people. Extreme caution needs to be used when driving on the coal conveyor berm. Please take the time to read the large sign at the north end of the berm. The berm edge is unstable. Keep vehicle close but clear of the conveyors and stackers. In dry conditions, vehicles should drive very slowly to avoid creating dust clouds. Do not pass a vehicle unless one can move tight to the conveyor and stop to allow the other to pass. And no parking next to the stackers. Turn around only at the end of the berm. Use extreme care and attention at all times. Violations will be subject to discipline and restrictions from driving on the berm. Stationary equipment. Machinery cannot be trusted, even when it is shut down and appears to be stationary. The majority of our equipment is live, remotely operated, and can move at any time. Conveyor systems have a warning startup alarm that will sound off, warning you that the conveyor is just about to start. All equipment must be locked out before you perform any work on or around the machine. There are many conveyors around the site, and emergency rope cords run the length of every belt conveyor. In case of emergency, such as being caught in a belt, pull the safety line to stop the conveyor immediately. Electricity. Only licensed electricians and qualified technical personnel are authorized to repair or make alterations to electrical equipment. When using an extension cord outside or in any damp condition, a GFCI cord adapter must be used. These are available in the storage department. Excavations and coal piles. All excavation work needs to conform to regulatory requirements, such as proper shoring. All digging and drilling will require a permit from a supervisor to ensure proper location of underground services, electric, water, etc., is performed before digging or drilling. Extra care must be taken when operating a backhoe on the berm to avoid damaging the high voltage power cables that line the surface of the berm. Doing so could cause severe injury or even death. When working on or around a coal pile, be aware of possible sinking and pile collapse, or sloughing that may happen due to wet coal. Confined spaces. Confined workspaces are hazardous areas that could have limited access and/or may contain a toxic atmosphere. Confined space entry is an involved process requiring planning, communication, lockout, and diligent monitoring. Employees working in confined spaces must review the procedures with their supervisor prior to entry to ensure all precautions are covered. Hot work. Hot work is any temporary or permanent operation that produces flames, sparks, or heat. Our hot work system includes the authorization of a supervisor, preparation of the work site, the issuing of a hot work permit, and continuous monitoring by a dedicated fire watch person. Working at heights. If your work requires that you work at heights, you will receive specific hands-on training. Fall protection equipment is required anytime you are working above 2.4 meters or wherever there is an elevated risk of injury from a fall. A fall hazard assessment and fall protection plan must be completed prior to conducting any tasks involving working at heights. Only authorized personnel are permitted to operate aerial work platforms and man lifts. You must be trained and certified in the safe operation of this equipment. Scaffolding that is 3 meters in height or greater must be assembled by a certified person. Always check the tag on the scaffolding before each use. Ensure that it has not passed its expiry date and take note of any documented hazards or precautionary measures. Working alone. Prior to working alone, a supervisor will assess the level of risk according to the work being performed. This will be done in consultation with the employee, and the necessary check-in program will be established. Any worker who is working alone, as a minimum precaution, must be provided with a radio. Radio or physical checks must be performed as per the agreed-upon timeframes, and in the event that contact cannot be made, an emergency response will be initiated. Here is a list of all the radio channels used at Neptune. Always confirm radio contact with your supervisor before leaving to do your task. Check at the storage department for the latest version of the radio channel list. Housekeeping. If you see a housekeeping issue that you can quickly and safely take care of, please correct the situation. If you see a housekeeping issue that you do not have the time or expertise to address, report it immediately to your supervisor so it can be addressed by available personnel. Many close calls and incidents have origins in housekeeping. Please help us keep everything in tip-top shape. Part 3. Core Safety Processes. In this section, we will review our core safety management system processes and the associated responsibilities that apply to everybody on site. Safety training and competency, signage and labels, pre-work hazard assessments, lockout procedure, track flagging procedure, inspections and monitoring, hazard reporting, close call and incident reporting, safety communications, and enforcement. Safety training and competency. This important process includes 3 topics: general orientation, worksite tour, and proof of certifications. All employees will receive this orientation prior to beginning work. This orientation must be refreshed annually. Employees will be provided with a tour of the areas that they will be required to access. The purpose of this tour is to familiarize you with the specific hazards in the area and available emergency response equipment. You may be asked to participate in certified training. These certifications will be dependent on the type of work you are performing. Some include aerial work platform training, fall protection certification, and trade certifications. Signage and labels. Signs are used throughout the facility to indicate hazards that are unique to the area, any special PPE requirements, and other items of unique interest. Please be on the lookout for signs and take the time to read them. Information tags are affixed to equipment or machinery that is not safe to operate. If you detect equipment that is unsafe to operate, affix an appropriately filled out information tag. All caution and danger tags and tape must have both the reason it was applied as well as the contact name and phone number of the person that put it on. Pre-work hazard assessments. Some tasks require that employees attend pre-work meetings at the beginning of each shift. These meetings are designed to address the various hazards and their associated controls. Lockout procedure. Each person who will be working on the equipment or who will be at risk in the event of operation or movement of the equipment must ensure that all sources of energy have been neutralized or secured and must apply a personal safety lock to the lockout scissor clip at all lockout points. A Neptune supervisory lock must be applied to all lockout points before personal safety locks are applied. The supervisory lock is the first on and last off. The following information is required: lock number, locked by your name, date, equipment, and the reason for locking it out. Also, when you remove the lock, put your name under cleared by as well as the date it was cleared. Electrical equipment must be locked out at the breaker, switch, or disconnect used to isolate the equipment. This is done by a qualified person, electrician, who will in turn open the correct switch. Control buttons are not to be used for lockout. The electrician must check on the PLC to ensure that the locked out equipment is de-energized. Track flagging procedure. If a worker must perform any activity that is within 6 feet of any rail track, the track must be flagged out of service following Neptune's rail track flagging procedure. No work is to take place on or near any rail track until authorization has been received from the Rail Coordination Department. Inspections and monitoring. All machinery must be inspected by the operator before he or she uses the equipment. The appropriate inspection forms must be filled out and signed off by both the operator and the supervisor. If any safety concerns are found during your inspection, please notify your supervisor. Hazard reporting. If you encounter a simple workplace hazard and you can safely correct it, please do so. The reporting of hazards is also important, especially if you do not correct it. Please report all hazards to your supervisor. Close call and incident reporting. Reporting close calls and incidents is a good thing and is an important aspect of our safety management system. The basic philosophy is, this time it could have been a close call or a minor injury. Next time the same circumstances happen, it could be more serious. If something is not reported, it cannot be acted upon. Report all close calls and incidents to your supervisor immediately. Safety communications. There are a number of different ways that safety information is conveyed to all potentially affected personnel. Here's a quick review of 3 core safety communication processes: safety and tailgate meetings, safety boards, and Neptune representative. Safety meetings are a useful tool for maintaining an awareness of current and potential health and safety issues. The Wednesday safety meetings are not mandatory, but we highly recommend attending and participating when on site. Please speak up about any of your safety concerns. Safety boards are found in common areas throughout the site. These boards contain an important array of safety information. Please take the time to review them regularly. There are now touchscreen monitors at various locations around the site. They contain a wealth of information from site and community news, environment, safety, and even the latest weather reports. Please feel free to explore them. Your supervisor is a valuable source of safety information. Safety information such as hazard alerts will be communicated by your supervisor. Hazards. Mobile equipment. Neptune's safety management system is thoroughly enforced. Coaching will be provided when you are new to a task. However, once trained and deemed competent, you are expected to follow rules, procedures, and guidelines at all times. Employees found to be acting in a fashion contrary to the rules, procedures, and guidelines may be subject to disciplinary action and removal from the site. Part 4. Emergency Response. In this section, we will look at reporting an emergency, available resources, medical ERP, fire ERP, and evacuation ERP. Reporting an emergency. In an emergency, contact the security cell phone at 604-968-4786, and they will contact the appropriate emergency personnel. The first aid attendant can be reached on radio channel number 1 or on the on-site phones at local 222. Available resources. There are a variety of instant resource equipment and facilities available throughout the site. Take note of their location throughout your work activities. Some of the key resources include first aid stations, AED units, eye wash stations, firefighting gear, and spill response. First aid can be obtained by a Neptune Level 3 first aid attendant who is located next to the stores department in the site office building. AED, automatic external defibrillator, units can be found in 9 locations throughout the site. All foremen, as well as other various regular employees, have been trained in the use of AEDs and CPR to ensure rapid deployment of the AED unit in a cardiac emergency. Eye wash stations have been strategically placed throughout the site. If you need to use one, be sure to thoroughly flush your eyes. You must report to your supervisor after using an eye wash to ensure it is ready for the next use. This map shows the locations of all the AEDs and eye washing stations on the site. Firefighting equipment is located throughout the site. This equipment needs to be maintained in a ready-to-use state and access must not be obstructed. Spills of any kind need to be reported immediately to your supervisor. Spill containment and cleanup equipment are readily available but are to be used by trained personnel only. Medical Emergency Response Plan. If you or another worker require medical attention, contact First Aid. If additional medical assistance is required, the first aid attendant will ensure transportation to a medical facility is available or an ambulance will be called. Please be sure to take a copy of our modified work program to the medical facility so that light-duty options can be properly assessed by the doctor. Fire Emergency Response Plan. In the event of a fire, notify your supervisor immediately. If you discover a fire, extinguish it if you are able to do so without putting yourself or others at risk. If you feel you cannot extinguish the fire safely, isolate it if possible and leave the area. Evacuation Emergency Response Plan. If an evacuation order is given, stop work immediately. If in a building, proceed to the nearest exit in a safe and orderly manner. Do not re-enter the building for any reason. Proceed to the nearest muster station and scan your port pass or your facility access pass. Follow the direction of the supervisor and/or emergency service personnel. Being ready for plausible emergencies and knowing what to do in the event of an emergency are important aspects of working here at Neptune Bulk Terminals. Part 5. Clothing and PPE. In this section, we will take a look at basic clothing and PPE requirements, which include long hair, jewelry, gate-to-gate PPE, water hazard PPE, and task-specific PPE. Long hair. Long hair can get caught in machinery, so it must be properly restrained so it does not present any risk. Jewelry. Jewelry can present a real danger when performing some tasks. Do not wear rings if a hand pinch point risk is present. And don't wear dangling jewelry, such as bracelets or necklaces, around rotating equipment. Gate-to-gate PPE. Gate-to-gate PPE requirements for employees include hard hat, safety glasses, work clothing suitable for the work performed, high-vis vest, and CSA-approved safety boots. High-vis vests or coveralls, hard hats, and safety glasses are provided and are available at the stores department in the Site Services building. Hard hats are required everywhere on site, while outside of an office building or vehicle. Hard hats must be CSA approved, unmodified, free of damage, and less than 5 years old. CSA approved safety glasses are required in all areas other than offices, lunchrooms, and control rooms. Prescription glasses must be safety rated and have accompanying side shields. Loose clothing, including drawstrings, could get caught in conveyors, machinery, or tools, resulting in serious injuries or fatality. Keep your clothing form fitting and free of hazards. Appropriate clothing on site includes full-length pants and a high-visibility vest or reflective coveralls. If wearing rain gear that isn't reflective, a high-vis vest must be worn over top. CSA safety boots must be worn on site with a shaft height of at least 6 inches. Footwear must be properly maintained. Boots with tears, exposed protective toes, or structural damage must be replaced. Water hazard PPE. If you are working around the dock edge and there is the potential for a fall into the water, a life vest must be worn. In an emergency, there are life rings available at several locations along the dock face. Task-specific PPE. Task-specific PPE. Additional PPE may be required depending on the task being performed. Please ask your supervisor if you are unsure of what PPE is required. Respirator, welding mask, hand protection, splash goggles, and additional PPE could be required for specific tasks. Wearing the appropriate and well-maintained PPE for each area of work and each job being conducted is an important part of working safely. Part 6. Environmental Management System, or EMS. In this section, we will take a look at the EMS requirements, which include refueling procedure, controlled product spills, waste disposal, and product contamination. Refueling procedure. Fuel can present a real hazard to our environment if care isn't taken during handling. Never refuel equipment over or near storm drains or ditches. Take the necessary precautions to prevent any overflow or spillage. Controlled product spills. Controlled product spills are not only potentially hazardous to our health, but the environment as well, if not handled appropriately. If a spill occurs, contain it if safe to do so. Review the MSDS for the controlled product for any special considerations. Inform your supervisor immediately to ensure that the proper emergency response procedures are followed and the environmental impacts are minimized or eliminated. Waste disposal. All waste must be disposed of in accordance with all applicable regulations. Your supervisor will provide you with the waste disposal requirements after consulting the Manager of Engineering and Environment. Product contamination. Neptune has ISO 9001 quality certification and is committed to providing our customers with high-quality product that is free of contamination. Every effort must be made to ensure that product is not contaminated. If, however, any contamination does take place, it must be reported to your supervisor immediately so the impact can be minimized or eliminated. Product contamination must be taken very seriously at Neptune. No organic matter is allowed on site other than in designated lunchrooms or in the main building. Contamination of our products could lead to job losses. Always report any type of contamination to a supervisor. Community stewardship. Neptune is committed to demonstrating respect for the values of our surrounding community. Neptune's objectives are to reduce the impact of our operation on air environment, water use or discharges, marine and terrestrial ecosystems, residual and chemical contamination, resource utilization, community issues. Please do your part to assist us in achieving our objectives. This concludes your training. To review any of these materials and videos, please go to neptunebulkterminals.com. Neptune Terminals wants you to have a safe day every day.